and welcome to Australia's first Let's Talk Tiny Houses podcast. My name is Christine, and ever since laying eyes on my first tiny house, I wanted to know more about the movement, the lifestyle, the communities, and most of all, how I can go tiny. While on my tiny journey, gathering information and meeting amazing like-minded people, I started thinking, apart from my business, how could I contribute back to the movement? Then I was introduced to podcasting, and that was my light bulb moment. I'm so thrilled that through this podcast, I am able to bring you an amazing cast of co-hosts who all bring their own unique skills, knowledge, and advice to each episode. All of us are extremely passionate about the tiny house movement and want to share our experience, expertise, and enthusiasm with our listeners. Each week we will bring you a special guest interview or particular hot topic discussion that relates to tiny living for your listening pleasure. Okay, let's jump in and find out who we have with us this week. Is this the first eco-village communal living project you've
been involved with? I've been involved in another a bit more conventional, although it was when we did it, it was the first one in Queensland. We applied in this shire, same shire. Well, it was Caloundra Shire back then. So we applied to set up a group title. So it's with group title you have common land and then individual titles on the common land. So it's a form of subdivision. And so I've been involved in that. I was involved in the actual earthworks and so on at Crystal Waters, and I've been involved in another group title. But so ours was the first group title proposal for this shire.
And what year was that?
Initially it was 87.
87.
Yeah, and they didn't want to know about it back then. It took quite a while before we actually got, I think we first applied in 86, and we eventually got it approved in 87. So, but yeah, it took over a year, and we had to end up taking the council to court over it to even get it approved, because they said they didn't like this form of development because it took work away from proper developers.
That's a shame, isn't it? So you've really had a lot of experience to.
Although I think this is actually I think where we've come to now with ELF being set up as a not-for-profit and a community land trust is actually a much better system than because what happens with the group title is you've got the advantage that a group title has is that if an individual wants to move off, they can sell up their title within, so they can sell up their property and their house that they've put effort into and move somewhere else, and someone else buys in.
Which everyone has a say in who goes?
Not a lot, no. There's not. It's more or less on the open market, whereas in this form of community land trust, no one really owns the land as such. So everyone owns it. So it's or the land in fact owns. It's more the Aboriginal concept of, the land is not something that's tradable. It actually is something that's there and it sustains you, and your role is as a steward to look after it and make it better than when you found it. So it's a completely different way of thinking about it. Rather than an ownership model, it becomes so there is ownership involved that says, I've got an equity in this, but it's through a company share structure, and you don't actually, no individual ever owns the land. So you share the land as a group. Yeah.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah. So I think it's a much better concept because it then, if you like, it gives a voice and a personhood to the land, because it's what actually is sustaining everything here.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So there's more of a sense of respect and reverence, if you like, for the place, rather than the the idea, well, I own it, I can do what I like with it.
Well, and you've certainly improved the land since you arrived.
Yes,
As we were walking through, you were showing us all your food plants and
water systems.
So I was very interested in this water system.
Yeah.
So we walked down and you've got a little pond dam area. Yeah. So could you explain the water filtration system?
So what it can get quite dry here, and so we felt what we needed was, rather than put more tanks in, which we could do, but then you're still limited to what your roof area is as to how much water you can collect as rainwater. So we made a dam that is taking the catchment from roads, and really all of the runoff from this part of the property all goes into there. So what happens is when
you say roads, it's roads on the property that are dirt roads
and
you've
the
created.
council road as well.
Yeah. Ah.
So the council road, the Pinch Lane goes along there.
Oh, yeah.
That can drain into that dam as well. So, and it actually only takes 25 mil of runoff. So like if we have heavy rain, 25 mil takes it from being empty to full. So it doesn't take very much rain to fill up that little dam. And then from there, we want to recirculate it through a soil filter. So, and that will have a porous material underneath in a clay-lined trench, and then we irrigate the water from the dam onto that. All of the fine clay in the dam gets filtered out, and any bacteria and so on gets filtered out, and you get clean water coming back in. So the idea is to just continually circulate that with a little solar pump and a solar panel, and then that gives you a big volume of really clean water that you can use for the garden, or even in emergencies to top up our water tank.
Would it be drinkable too?
It would be,
Potable.
Yeah.
So,
and you were saying it only takes 30 centimetres. 300
millimetres, yeah. So it takes a really shallow depth of what's called a sandy loam. So it's got some clay in it, and some silt and some sand. So it's a sandy loam soil. And if you put water through trickle irrigation through a depth of soil like that, by the time it comes out the bottom, it's perfectly clear.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, so it's a way of, and then you just plant plants in the soil filter, so they take up the nutrients. Yeah, so any,
Love it.
nutrient runoff that comes into the dam is automatically sucked up by the plants.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. And you were saying as well, probably from the top of the catchment, it would take about a day to get down to the pond to filter it through?
No, that's about how long it takes to filter through the soil filter.
Through the soil filter.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
No, when it rains heavily, from the top of the catchment to the dam is probably only 5 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, it flows very quickly.
Okay.
Quite
So
steep,
I better clear that up. When the water comes, the trickle system goes onto the soil, it takes a day to get through that filter.
The soil, yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. We're all over it now, Patti.
So, and that's why it comes out so clean, because there's little microbes in there that eat the bacteria, and then there's physical filtering of the water so that the clay gets filtered out and churned in with the soil. So, yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it.
So it's actually an ecological filter.
Yeah.
You're using soil, plants, and controlled water management to filter the water.
Brilliant.
Simple and very cheap to do.
Yeah. And continuous water supply.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So then we continued our little walk.
Yes.
We turned a right.
Yes.
And then we went down another track, and then I think we turned a left.
That's it.
And that's where we came across the big boulders.
That's it.
That have fallen down.
Yeah.
One of them's had a little topple in the last rainfall.
Yeah.
And then we came across the lava.
Yes. So there's some fascinating geological things here. We're in an area that would once have had above us would have had a basalt plateau, a cap. Most of that has been washed away. So bearing in mind that when you look at the Glasshouse Mountains, what you're seeing is the plug that was hundreds, could even be 1,000 metres below the ground. So this was a volcanic plug, and that plug that's in the Mount Tibrogargan and Biwa and so on, all of the Glasshouse Mountains, is actually rhyolite, which is the lighter material that in the end stage of a volcanic eruption, the light material then comes in and it sets. It's like toothpaste consistency, and it actually sets and blocks the flow of any further lava. And then that solidifies into hard rock, which is and that's the bit that's left. Everything else is washed away. So the entire volcano that would have gone way up high and would have covered this whole area, all of that's washed out to the sea. So that's why this area now is washed back to the Jurassic sandstone, which would have been underlying this whole area.
Wow.
So it's a fascinating geological area, and there's still a little bit of that lava cap up in the Blackwall Ranges and Mullaney and Monkfield. So all of that area up there is still basalt, but all of this area here had these little basalt fissures that have mostly been eroded away, but there must have been a deep gully because you could see it was only a couple of metres wide between the sandstone gully where the lava had flowed down, and there's this little lava, that's what's called a dike, but a dike is slightly different, but it's like a lava dike, where that basalt then is embedded within the sandstone area.
Yeah, and we could clearly see the edge of it, couldn't we, on both sides? Yeah, and beautiful sandstone next to it.
On either side.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. So then we started walking a little bit further, and the foliage.
I think that's called bush
bashing. Bush bashing, yes, we were. And it started getting a little bit thicker, a little bit higher.
You found yourself crawling through ferns and
we took a photo of Dean and
check yourself for ticks tonight.
Okay. Oh, Dean. Oh,
goody. Good idea.
I thought I'd better not mention that at the time.
We were too focused on the snakes, weren't we? Now we worry about ticks. Good on you.
But so we went through the ferns. We had a little picture we took of you popping out of them.
In the ferns.
That's right. And so we were trekking through, and you're taking us to the dry waterbed.
Yes.
And that was beautiful. I'm so glad we went through it.
Yes.
It
was worth the effort.
It was worth it.
It's a gorgeous spot, isn't it?
It was fantastic, and we leapt from one side of it to the little...
Maybe intrepid.
I know.
Maybe not so graciously as Mumbo Jumbo did. She did a better job.
She was so... I didn't think she was going to make it, but she did.
You could see her psyching herself up.
Worked through all the risk assessment, and she
went.
I
can do this.
She went.
Yeah. So we're standing on top of a little rock.
Huge boulder, yes.
Yeah. And it had... Was it a pawpaw tree?
No, it was a fig tree.
Fig.
A native fig.
Native fig.
It's the small-leaved fig, or rock fig,
So the idea for the future is
to make a waterhole in that area, which would be really deep and lovely spot to jump off the rock into it
because the tree gets big.
It'll be very cool.
Yeah, well, it was beautiful, wasn't it?
Stunning.
And then we were coming back, and you were pointing out some spots that would be great for tiny houses.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was lovely. And looking back up, so you're really sort of down in a gully area then, but it's still, you're getting the views of the mountains, and it's really, it was really lovely down there. Like you're in your own little hideaway sort of thing. It was great.
Yeah.
Really good walk, having a look at everything, and then we've come back upstairs. Actually, we didn't have a look at the new construction downstairs, but the idea of those is two new units.
Because we've had so many more people want to come here, and we don't have any more accommodation. We thought it'd be great to just build in a couple of self-contained flats downstairs. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So, because some people want more privacy. Some people are really, like all of our current people, love the communal living, but it'll be, there'll always be some people who think, oh, I'd like a bit more privacy. It's nice to have meals together and so on from time to time, but I'd like to be able to, have my own space. And,
that's right. Well, some people might be very loud snorers.
Yes,
and it might just be
exactly.
practical for everybody for them to have a little bit of private space.
No, we send them down to the container room.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I haven't showed you that yet.
that.
We must come down and have a look at the container. But yeah, we've got it's got its own outdoor shower and a toilet down there and a room that's half of a 40-foot container.
Oh, brilliant.
So I'll show you
yeah.
that as well.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So that's where, because I don't know if you know, but Jimmy keeps very odd hours. So that's where Jimmy has been until he got his tiny house here.
Oh, okay.
Because he'd be going to bed at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning after a big night of work, because he's a night owl. And then we'd all be starting to get up and be noisy, and he's trying to get to sleep. So we decided probably better you go and live in the container, and he loved it down there.
Oh, yeah, we will check that out.
Yes.
So right now, with the property, there's a for sale sign out the front.
Yes.
So would you like to speak a little bit about what's going on at the moment?
What's happening is we, unfortunately, we had a private mortgage, and they circumstances for them has changed, and they need to have their money back by September. So if we can't refinance, and we've tried refinancing through banks, but unfortunately since the Banking Royal Commission, they've now really clamped down on, there's a new set of responsible lending guidelines, which make it almost impossible to finance a normal house. It's just really difficult. I mean, we've got the track record to show that we can easily meet all of our bills and the mortgage, but they won't take the full income from the rental. Instead, they have to go by the median income from rentals in this area and then take 70% of that. So it means they underestimate the amount of income that it actually can generate, and as a consequence they won't lend on it, or they'll lend less than what we need. So yeah, we need basically, with the amount the bank have offered, which is 200,000, we need another 90 in order to be able to completely cover off all of the other expenses that we need to pay out the mortgage and pay out my credit card, because the bank have said in order to lend you this, we need your credit card closed.
Yes.
So we'd have to close the credit card account.
So if someone's listening and thinking, I might be interested, what's the criteria you're looking for in an investor?
Well, we'd need someone who has obviously seen the property and knows that what we're doing here is aligned to the vision that we have for the property. So that's the most important thing. And then that would like to live in a community. It's a tiny community. I mean, like I say, it's more like a intentional family than a community, because there's only 10 of us. And then kids when I have my kids for holidays as well. But so it's a small group of people, and they need to kind of know that that's what I want to live in a community and share resources and do things together, and
that's right.
Build orchards, grow orchards together, and
so like you were saying earlier, you're not after a passive investor.
No, we want people who are actually actively want to be part of it. They don't necessarily have to be working on the property other than that voluntary 5-hour contribution, but we do want people who have an interest in the property. So we've got 2 people who are prepared to put in 30 so far. We just need one more person who's prepared to put in 30, and then we can go to the bank and get the rest of the finance we need to re-establish a mortgage.
Yeah.
And we can easily cover the mortgage and more. We've proven that for 4 years. So so it's actually fairly low risk for people, and then their contribution then would give them the right to be part of it. And the other thing I never mentioned, which I should mention, is that we have a what we call a social enterprise shares as well. So we've got a capital contribution shares and social enterprise shares. And with the social enterprise shares, that's where we do stuff here, for example, like extending underneath. And so the money that people put in to do that work becomes a revenue source. So they can put that in as a loan, or they could put it in as capital as well. But more typically, you'd put it in as a loan, and then you'd get that loan repaid from the revenue once the flats are finished and let out. So there's and there's other projects, like we want to, if we can refinance, then we'll build a life bubble on the property, and that would be a source of revenue as well. We've done the sums on that, and there's one down in the Blue Mountains, and they get more than $8,000 a month just from the cave farm that they let out. Yeah.
Wow.
So that would be a source of revenue that we could then pull and do other work.
Yeah.
So we gradually improve the property, and the longer term vision was to have like a little village area down the bottom, where we actually have like an amphitheatre built into the rock, and that would then have a restaurant and commercial shops and things, that people might have their own business, or there's all sorts of opportunities there for people with compatible businesses.
So I was thinking with the greenhouse growing all your veggies, do you take them to market?
Exactly.
Would you have a little market stall out the front here, or do you go to market? It'd
probably be to market rather than a stall out the front. The stall out the front could work, but because we've got people we've already got people here who go to the market on and with the cartel Latin street food, better to link it in.
Next door,
link it in. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
So if people were wanting to contact you, could they do that through? We'll pop the links to your Facebook page.
My email address would be fine too.
Oh, great.
dean.cameron@lifebubbles.org.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So September is the deciding month.
Yes, we need to. Ideally, if someone is interested, we need to kind of sort something out before the sale. Just on the growing side of things, the people here just really love it. Like, we are virtually self-sufficient in papaya. I've got a nice one there we'll have for dessert tonight. They just we have one ripen and another one just continuous. And we've only got about 6 or 7 papaya trees, but they're just such productive things, and people just love that. And bananas, we when we have a glut of them, when you have a whole bunch ripen, we dry them, we freeze them.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dean, for again having Patti and I.
A pleasure.
And sharing. We had fantastic pineapple, cheese and crackers this morning. On the deck looking out.
It's the life, isn't it?
Oh, it was the life. But yes.
The sun's just starting to set now.
Yeah.
The chills coming through.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's just beautiful here. Well, thank you so much, Dean, again, for having us and sharing your story and walking us through the property and getting us out and about in the bush. We'll get an update for
watch this space
for September.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So thank you, Patti, for being with
You're
me
welcome.
today.
Thank you for
going
driving.
for the road
Wonderful.
trip.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dean. Wow, what a great episode. I would like to thank you for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed this week's discussion. I would like to now invite you over to our exclusive Facebook group, where you as our listeners will be able to interact with us, each other, see photos and additional extras that accompany each episode, and be the first to know what we have coming up. If there is a particular topic you would like to hear more about, or someone you think we need to interview, please drop us a line at letstalktinyhouses@gmail.com or via our Facebook group. You can find this podcast series on iTunes, Spotify, or your favourite podcast app. And while you're there, please show your love by giving us a rating. Hopefully it's 5 stars. Our show notes will be available on Podbean, along with any podcast corrections and amendments. The Let's Talk Tiny Houses podcast is brought to you by myself, Christine Murphy, and my business, OCD, Organising, Cleaning and Decluttering Specialist, which can be found on Facebook or through my website, ocdpro.com.au. I would like to thank all my co-hosts for their amazing contributions and Joanne Helder for editing all our audio and making us sound so fabulous. Until next week, please take care and enjoy yourself.